All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Corey Ganim Show. So today's guest is named Brandon Vaughn. This guy is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to all things AI. I met him a couple of weeks ago. We had a really high level conversation about things that he's doing with AI, specifically around hiring. And we're going to talk about his company, HireBus, and the way that they're using AI agents to take hiring to the next level and really smooth out that process. He's also coached, no exaggeration, over 20,000 different service-based business owners. This guy is playing the game of business at a really high level. And we have the privilege of spending the next 40 minutes or so with him and soaking up as much knowledge as we can. And Brandon, I hope that intro did you justice. I know you do a
Dang,
little bit
man.
more than that, but I'm excited for the time, man.
I appreciate it. That was a killer intro. You're making me feel awesome. So appreciate you having me on, and I'm like super happy to be here and geek out on all things systems and AI and people.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, let's kick it off there. Let's start there. So before we jump into HireBus and what you're doing specifically with AI and things in the agent world, why don't you just give us the quick and dirty background on, the multiple ventures you have?
Well, let's see. ADHD, crazy entrepreneur that has been on commission only pay since I was 13 years old with my first job. I got my first business license the day I turned 18 and have been self-employed my entire life. And been in home services specifically is kind of like where I got my start. I've made every single stupid mistake I feel like you can as an entrepreneur, from either hiring the wrong people, setting them up for, terrible success, and saying the wrong thing at a team meeting and having half of my team quit on me.
Is that a true story?
It's 100% true. We were booked
Oh, we
out
gotta
2
hear
months
that.
solid, the middle of our busy season, and literally over half my team quit within 2 weeks of each other. It was a nightmare. I had my first panic attack, but I don't know what the heck I'm doing like every day. And I feel like I have to kind of stay in that sweet spot because that's kind of where I find growth. And, constantly trying to, I never imagined that I would start up an AI recruiting company or a garage floor coatings company or construction business or any of these things that I've kind of ended up falling into. But I think that's the thing that I love most about it is just that, that creating something from nothing and kind of coming up with that. That's been what's kind of fueled me over the years.
Well, we've got to hear that story. You can't lead off with, oh, I said the wrong thing in a team meeting and then half my team quit when we've got 2 months of pipeline backed up. So let's hear that. I'm
Okay.
curious to start there.
It was my cleaning business, and I don't want to blame my wife. It's going to sound like I'm blaming my wife, but I was having a conversation with my wife, and I was like, hey, I think I want to give one of my guys a raise. She's like, oh, I got the best idea for you. At the coffee shop where we worked, when someone on the team got a raise, like our boss announced it. We like cheered for them, and we was like, that was so great. And I'm like, really? Like, that's an awesome idea. I like that. So I did that, and it had the opposite effect. And it was probably compounded by the fact that there were people on the team that had not gotten a raise for quite some time. And then the raise that I gave to, they did not feel like that guy deserved it at all.
Oh my
And it was
God.
already kind of a tinderbox in that business. I was kind of at a place where I was semi-disengaged already. Had some personal stuff happen in my life, that was, very, very, very heavy, and was kind of checked out in general and just trying to kind of keep things at bay. And first guy came up, turned in his notice, and literally like dominoes, one after the other over the course of the next 2 weeks. It was insane. It was crazy, crazy stressful period. And I've had a lot of those moments over my careers. I keep finding ways to do dumb stuff, which hopefully you learn from, right? That's the goal.
It's funny you say that because I feel like I say that every other week. I'm like, why do I keep doing this dumb shit? Like it's
Yeah.
constant. It's constant. And it's like in hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, why would I have ever done that? But in the moment, you're like, oh, this is a great idea. And it
Right.
ends up being the worst idea ever. So I can
Yeah.
absolutely relate to that.
You just got to kind of send it though. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I think every mistake that I've made in business over the years, has come from what I would consider to be the right intentions. And every result that you have in your business, whether it's a failure or some horrible thing, it's just a result. It's
Mhm.
just feedback back to you. on action that you took. And I would much rather take action and be wrong than take no action for that fear of making a mistake, because it's impossible to avoid. And then especially now in like this whole world that we live in, things are moving so freaking fast. It can be paralyzing to just feel like things have to be perfect before you take action. So I've really tried to lean into that discomfort as much as I possibly can. I think that's my new survival strategy.
Well, it's smart too, because I mean, that's where you learn, right? I mean, again, kind of relating back to my own experience, I feel like 2024, well, it's not that I feel like it was the best year of my life monetarily and in business. And thinking back to it, I mean, I certainly learned things in 2024, but not as nearly as much as I've learned this year in 2025, which objectively for me has actually been a pretty bad year in terms of business. But it's like I've learned more in the last 6 months than I learned in all of 2024 combined. And I feel like, what you learn in a down year, I feel like is kind of what propels you into better years in the future. So I kind of echo that sentiment, and you're not growing if you're not making mistakes and if you're not failing.
It's interesting. I've done a lot of speaking at different events. I've had the privilege and pleasure of being able to be invited to conferences where there's a lot of like home service business owners that were there. And one thing was really interesting when I would both sit in the audience listening to a speaker or being on stage speaking, there were people that I noticed that were very, very successful, that when a speaker talked about a book, they were on Amazon and they were ordering that book. Yep. When the speaker talked about like, hey, here's something that we did in our team on the sales processes or in the office, like they were texting their teams and they were delegating, they were setting up things, and like speed of execution seems to be a common pattern that I see in most successful entrepreneurs that I've spent time around. And now with like the whole advent of AI and how fast all this stuff is moving, the ability to be able to just move fast, absorb information fast, execute quick, get small wins, don't worry about perfection, but just worry more about just taking action and just getting 1% better every single day. That seems to be kind of the recipe for how a lot of these business owners are going to be able to not only succeed, but also just stay relevant. I think that's the part that I'm most terrified about is, falling behind and not staying current with the changes that are happening.
Absolutely. No, and your point about getting 1% better every day, I mean, I think that's the best way to look at things, right? I mean, you kind of have to take that approach, because I'm sure we all have those days or those weeks where we make quantum leaps where maybe we get 10% better or 20% better in a day, but just focusing on that 1% improvement each day, I think is critical. Now, one thing I want to kind of get into is you had mentioned in the intro, you've got what did you say? A floor, was it a floor coatings business, a construction business, and an AI hiring business? So those are three businesses that to me seem to be polar opposite ends of the spectrum. So how do you go from construction to AI hiring to like floor coatings?
It's funny. So my dad, he was an owner operator window cleaner for 40 years. That's how I got into cleaning. I worked alongside him. He paid me commission to work alongside and, would just pay me like a percentage of whatever we did. And so it taught me to work really fast. But then my first business was a cleaning business. Then I did construction and I just kind of fluttered around. I have what's known as, I think, the DIY death syndrome, where I love to figure things out. I like to see how it works. I like to do it myself. Not because I guess it is probably rooted in a little bit of control, but mostly just because I love to learn. And I like that satisfaction of just figuring something out and being like, wow, like I can do it. But it's been one of the toughest things for me as an entrepreneur, because if I'm good at something, therefore I want to turn it into a business. And then I have an extremely hard time learning how to delegate that and expand that out to a team and a systemized process. And it took me many, many years to kind of get that figured out. And I had a lot of different businesses kind of over the course of time. After my cleaning business, I sold that. We had about 70 employees at the time when I sold that business. Then I got into a coaching company. It kind of gradually let me into that. That was a very natural progression because I had a lot of people asking me about, how I grew my business and, in a shorter period of time. And then while I had that coaching business, I decided to launch a YouTube channel called Map to a Million, where I wanted to document starting another brand new company from zero without doing any work in the field, without answering any phone calls, without doing any sales, and just do it through, people.
Right.
And that was Wise Coding. So I picked a company I had no experience in deliberately. And, we went from zero to $100,000 a month in 4 months. And then we hit 7 figures our first year. And then now 3.5, 4 years later, we're doing, we have 39 locations, $2 million a month in revenue. And that's literally with me working, I'd say an average of about an hour a week in the business. Cause I hired a full-time CEO to run that company. And literally from day one, like when I started, I had a full-time job as CEO of Conquer. So it had to be done like on the side. So, all these things, it feels like it's a gradual progression. I know they bounces all over the place, but for me, it feels very kind of linear, that one thing led to the next, which led to the next. I have a marketing company, a bookkeeping company, an electrical company, a manufacturing
Currently,
company.
you're saying all currently?
All currently, yeah.
Jeez.
About 12 total right now. That are kind of underneath my parent company, but full-time, my focus is Hire Bus. That's my full-time 9 to 5.
And so I really want to dive into Hire Bus, but I've got a million questions in between before we even get there. So it's funny, while you were talking about Map to a Million, I actually pulled that up on YouTube. So the YouTube channel, for anybody that wants to check that out, is called Conquer. It's at Conquer Platform. And I just think that's such a unique idea, wanting to go 0 to a million, essentially by putting other people into place to do the work for you. Now, I think there's some people listening to this that are probably at a much lower level of business, thinking that, oh, I can just hire a bunch of VAs to do the dirty work for me. But what you're talking about is, it's like, no, we're not hiring VAs. I'm hiring a CEO who I'm probably paying a few $100,000 a year, and who's also probably getting equity in the company, to come in and build this thing to, like you said, $2 million a month, which to most people is not even comprehensible at this point. Now, so your other 12 companies that you have, I'm assuming CEOs in place for all of them, executive team in place for all of them, to where really you're able to spend most of your time on Hire Bus, and the portfolio kind of runs itself. I mean, is that fair to say?
Yeah, it was really I'll, transparently, when I first kind of started the experiment of putting CEOs in place to run the business and sharing equity, I had no idea what I was doing. And I made some, less than ideal decisions and got some feedback, and have had some, partnerships that I've had to kind of adjust and pivot on a little bit over time. But now for me, I've had some really, really amazing coaches. One of my coaches, his name is Carl Allen. He's done over $350 billion worth of mergers and acquisition deals.
Jeez.
And he's literally told me straight up that 80% of his due diligence time that he spends when making an acquisition is ensuring that he has a good operator to run that business. And for me, as a high visionary, lower integrator type of person, I need to be surrounded by those that, can actually get things all the way to the finish line and get those things done. And, they have higher criticality than me. They don't have the same level of ADHD distraction, and, why I need to walk on a treadmill 10 hours or 10 miles a day to just get the ansies out of myself. So for me, getting that in place and learning how to find good operators, Steve Jobs says, I don't want to hire people so I tell them what to do. I want to hire smart people so that they tell me what to do.
Yep.
And if I want to grow a business from one location to 39, I want to go find someone that has experience in taking a business from 8 locations to 220. And then for them, it's like, okay, sweet. I know the playbook. I know how to do this. This is how I'll do it. And I don't have to be as involved. You still have to inspect what you expect and set good KPIs and dashboards and, hold them accountable. You can't do delegation by abdication, but it does allow you to be able to leverage that and be a little bit more passive as an investor. And then you only get paid when there's upside. Like I don't take salaries out of any of these businesses because I'm not involved in the day to day. It's just like a real estate holding or owning stock. It's just in stock of a company that I have, control and kind of founding power over.
So then with that type of model, right? And I think it makes sense that you don't take a salary because you're not really in any of those businesses. But with there being profit in these businesses, you're probably taking what, like a quarterly dividend or a distribution of some sort on the profit. And
Yes.
then the CEO is also incentivized with that same upside, I would assume in some capacity, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a variety of different ways to compensate. One of my companies is a percentage of profit that's generated that's paid out monthly. But then there's also, equity vesting options or equity vesting schedules, whether it's granted or they're provided as options. And our ultimate goal with all of these is an eventual exit. We're going to exit no matter what with all these. And with Wise Coatings or with any company I own, I have to think about what could that eventual exit look like? And can my CEO/partner have upside to where the time that they invest into it can be very, very lucrative, completely change their life with
Right.
that type of exit. And for oftentimes a lot of these operators, it's the first time they've had that kind of opportunity.
And what does the cadence of accountability look like with the portfolio company? So with 12 different companies, again, operator in place with each of them. Are you meeting with the operators on a weekly basis? Is it a monthly check-in? What does that look like as far as holding them accountable?
So the ones that I actually meet with on a regular basis, the ones that actually have executive leadership that requires my attention, we meet for about 30 minutes a week and we go through KPIs. And usually I come onto those calls saying like, what's keeping you up at night? Where are you stressed out? How can I lean in and help? And I'm more of like a thinking partner as well as someone who holds accountable. Okay, what's your OKRs? What's the dashboard look like? Let's go through the KPIs. How can I unlock things? Does the business need more cash or capital? Is there some other strategic part where I can lean in? And for the most part, it's just kind of helping them achieve what their ultimate goal is, which, is a large exit or is big distributions. Like if I can show up and say, I want you to get huge checks and I want you to have massive upside in this, like we have the same alignment on what we want the business to be able to do. So it comes from a place of service to be able to show up and try to help them get that, which in turn, is what we're both aligned on.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? Because you want them to have that upside. You want them to therefore be incentivized to perform at a high level to eventually achieve that exit, like you said. Now, again, I'm more so asking these questions out of my curiosity because I love the direction that you've gone with your business. And, I see myself doing something similar and having a portfolio of companies down the road. But one of my questions is around, so again, operator compensation. I know there's a million different ways to structure a deal, but is there any sort of standard or boilerplate kind of structure that you start from, whether it's, or just whatever that might be? Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, a lot of it depends upon a few factors. One, is it a startup or is it an already existing established business that has a lot of enterprise value already established? If you're, and I kind of was this, founder syndrome, startup syndrome that I had earlier on in my entrepreneurial career, which over time I've realized for me personally, it's way better to buy a business or to get a business that's already established, already secure, already has free cash flow. There's lots of ways. And I had a good coach that taught me a lot of stuff on that side to buy businesses with very little cash down. So if you have a business that's larger, that already has some enterprise value, you're not just going to give somebody equity into that business, because if it's worth millions, you're not going to just
You're
give
basically just
them
writing them a check.
percentage. Yeah.
Right.
And then what, they leave 6 months later and all of a sudden that's just like gone.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it has to do with how you write and structure your operating agreements. You can grant people opportunity to earn equity in the form of a grant or in the form of options to buy and purchase later on. And like in the form of a grant, usually what I do is I'll base that around certain EBITDA targets. So, okay, we have an EBITDA threshold. And if we can hit this EBITDA target, that will unlock a little bit of equity for you. And then we hit this next EBITDA target and it'll unlock a little bit more equity. Maybe they can find a path where they can earn 5, 10, 15, 20% ownership in a company that they otherwise wouldn't have. And I can set a vision for, hey, in X number of years, this could be like our target exit timeframe. This is what the value would look like. Here's how much that equity would be worth for you. And that's retirement level money for someone coming in. And it's way more than they would get, getting 20,000 shares of a big publicly traded company or something. There's options for them to buy at a strike price. Like, it's real life-changing exit for them. And then they get a guaranteed salary and they have bonuses. And I usually like to have a little bit lower of a base salary with more performance-based metrics, whether that is gross margin, net profits, revenue growth, something that is ultimately based off of the profit and loss of the business to give them a little bit of upside in the short term, as well as that longer term opportunity.
So it sounds like there's got to be a variable level of compensation for all the operators, right? It's never going to be just straight salary or, stock options plus salary. It's always going to be performance based, I assume, right? I mean, it has to be. Otherwise, what's the incentive to operate at a high level? I mean, is that fair to say?
100%, and it's, at the end of the day, it always comes down to a negotiation. Mm-hmm. Because if I tell someone, hey, this is going to be based on performance, and if you can hit these benchmarks, then this is all the money you're going to make. And they look at me and say, well, I don't want it to be, I want guaranteed something. I'm going to say, well, why?
Right. Yeah.
Why is it because you feel like you can't do this? You just finished telling me all the things that you could do and you have done. Sounds like it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, I've structured this in a way where you just do that, this is what you get. Why do you now not want that?
Right.
And if, is it that you don't have confidence you can do this? So getting some of those psychological conversations and alignment of interests put in place. The big thing with someone that moves from maybe a corporate guaranteed position into something that inherently is a little bit more entrepreneurial is that the definition to me of an entrepreneur is someone who's willing to take a greater than average risk for a greater than average reward. Well, why should you get all the guarantees in the world and then also get all the guaranteed upside there as well? That's not how it works. That's not, if you want that extra reward of the equity, like, look, you can get your guaranteed and you can go have your job and hopefully no one fires you and you walk away with nothing.
Right.
Or you can do this and hopefully you also don't get fired. But if you do a good job, you actually get real upside that can completely change your life. And, this is just an opportunity that doesn't come along very often for a lot of executives. And some people are really up for it. It kind of scratches that entrepreneurial itch, and maybe they do really well with it, or maybe they struggle. But getting that person in place that has that good blend, depending on what the growth strategy is of the company, if it's going to be an acquisition play, greenfield growth, you kind of look for different types of operators that have a specialty in a certain type of thing. It's aligned with your vision. Because that's the other tough part about getting executives and people is that if you're misaligned on a vision, you're really going to have a lot of conflict. So you have to make sure that you both have a general understanding of how you're going to grow this thing. You're not totally passive. And I don't think anyone ever should be completely passive in a business.
Absolutely. I mean, as soon as you become fully passive is as soon as the company starts to degrade. I mean, like you said earlier, right? Delegation by abdication is not a viable strategy. Now, I'm curious, do you have any horror stories with any of your operators or any of the executives that you put in place where maybe the expectation was one thing and it turned out to be just completely the opposite?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Without going into, any specifics, I'll say that I've been in situations, especially earlier on in my career, where I had a lot more optimism of what someone's capabilities were than even they had on their own capabilities. And when that misalignment became very, very clear and obvious, it really hurt the business. And it was very difficult for me to take away this opportunity of what it could be and that kind of original vision that I sold them on. Kind of felt like I was stealing it from them. And, I have low criticality. I love people. I want people to win, and I'll bet on someone even if they won't bet on themselves. And it's taken most of my horror stories, I would say, is around me looking at people and a lot of situations with just rose-colored glasses. And
I make the same mistake. Yeah, I do.
It's what gets me in. It's what's always kind of consistently gotten me in trouble. One thing that's awesome. Our hire bus, we have something called the right seat assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a single question assessment that on the back end of it gives you 21 different behavioral attributes on the scale of 0 to 100. So it gives you what's called a behavioral blueprint. Mm-hmm. And one of the measures on it is criticality. And it's your desire to be critical of people and things. I have an extremely low desire to be critical of people and things. I have to surround myself with business partners and others that have a much higher criticality so that they can keep an eye out on my blind spots and be like, no, Brandon, this person isn't as good as you think they are.
Right.
And my wife, fortunately, is like nearly 100% criticality.
Total opposite.
We make really, really good partners, and it's a good, strong marriage, even though sometimes it's spicy, just because I get that second layer of perspective. And I've just learned over the years that I need that in my life. I need to surround myself with people that offer those different perspectives. And it's really, really important when you're trying to put people in place that you can trust like this.
Right. And I think there's something to be said too for surrounding yourself with people that, I mean, like you said, like you and your wife, you have opposite, not necessarily opposite traits or opposite skill sets, although sometimes that can be valuable, but having people in your life that kind of excel in the areas that you are weak in and vice versa, like you said, kind of to be able to fill in those blind spots. So I like that. And I think that it makes a ton of sense. And one thing that you mentioned earlier, or you mentioned a couple of times throughout the conversation, is coaches you've had or coaching that you've received. And it sounds like you've been coached by some really high level people. And I think there are a lot of people out there that are afraid to invest in coaching. And I think for a couple of reasons. One, sometimes it's because I think this is more of like a deeper rooted issue, but maybe they don't want coaching because they know that they're flawed in some way, but they don't necessarily want to acknowledge it. So they don't want to bring that to light, and therefore they don't want to get help with it.
Right.
And then there are other people who they just incorrectly don't see an ROI. They're like, oh, well, why would I spend, $5,000 or $10,000? Or, I mean, in your case, I'm sure you've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a certain piece of advice or to get access to a certain kind of person, when in reality, one gem or one piece of advice or one introduction could be worth 10x what they paid. So I guess I know your philosophy on coaching, but are there any maybe major breakthroughs that you've gotten from a specific coach in the past? I know you've mentioned a few, but any more?
Yeah. Well, I'll kind of preface it by saying this. When you pay attention.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's like, I know exactly what I need to do at the gym. I know how to do every single movement and exercise. I know all about macros. I know how much I should be eating. I know that candy's bad for me. I know that I should be doing stuff, like all the stuff. I inherently know it.
Yep.
But when I know I'm going to lose $60 or $80 for a coaching session at 6 a.m. if I don't wake up and I'm not there to like be with my trainer or meet someone, like I get up out of bed.
Yep.
And I wish I had that level of, discipline that some people have, where they just have that internal motivation that just gets them. But I feel like I kind of need to be professionally babysat in a lot of different areas of my life.
I like that professional babysitting.
As stupid as it sounds. And it was a part I was like so embarrassed about. And I just hated that about myself and personality wise. But things just hit differently when you are not just listening to a free piece of information that you saw in a YouTube video or a Facebook ad or some random thing, free course. Like when you pay for something, your mind shifts to, this is now an investment. And if I don't execute, if I don't apply myself, if I don't actually do the action, then it's a waste of money. And I have something to lose now if I don't execute. If it's free and you never log in and watch the course and you never go in and do it, it's like, well, it's no big deal. Like it just doesn't hurt. So having something to lose for me has always been like a little bit extra of a motivator. And sometimes it's that motivator that I need. And then two, when you just pay a higher amount, oftentimes, not all the times, but oftentimes you just get access to a different caliber of person,
right,
or a different caliber of information that has more value. Again, the value is only there if you actually execute and do what it is that you learn. But for me, if I can have the confidence of just being able to borrow someone else's confidence that, hey, I'm really struggling with this decision. They're like, absolutely, this is the right decision.
yes.
I'm like, okay, all right, well then I do it 100 times faster than I'm just agonizing what I should do. And every time I've had those little aha moments or those epiphany moments, a big one for me and my coach more recently was actually around, buying companies and how I could buy a company. I bought an electrical company that free cash flows from day one. And, that's led me to like my next thing. And the more reps that I do, the better I get at being able to buy and set up these companies for success. It really has kind of unlocked a lot for me.
I really couldn't agree more with you when you say that when you pay for something, especially coaching, it's like now you have something to lose. Not only are you have money to lose by not showing up and not executing, but you also, if you don't execute on what the advice that you're paying for is, I mean, you kind of look like a fool to that coach, right? It's like, why are you paying them? In your case, your coach might say, it's like, why did you pay me, 10 grand or 50 grand? I don't know how much you're paying your coach, but I'm sure it's not cheap, right? So to them, it's almost like, well, you're almost not worthy as a student if you're not going to execute what it is that they say. And most of what you're paying for is accountability, right? Like I'm sure a lot of, maybe not all of what you're being coached on, but a lot of what you're being coached on and a lot of what you're being told is probably not things that you haven't heard before. It's not like, brand new groundbreaking information. It's more so being held accountable to focus on this one thing. At least that's been my experience, right? I've been a part of group coaching programs in the past, but it wasn't until about a month ago, I invested in one-on-one business coaching. And Brandon, I swear to you, session 1, minute 5, we're having a conversation. We're talking about, things. And he says something to me. He's like, oh, well, yeah, like that's what you got to focus on. And to me, it's like, well, duh. Like in hindsight, it's like, of course, like, why haven't I been doing this all along? And it wasn't new. It was, I've been telling myself that for months. I just hadn't, I didn't have the accountability in place to actually go and do it. And literally within 48 hours, it was implemented. The team was trained on it. We've got a system around it. And it's like, I had to go and pay a guy, a few grand to tell me what I already knew.
Right.
But it was worth it because now I'm actually doing it. Right. Whereas maybe I would have done it eventually, maybe not. So I completely agree with you. And I think it's totally worth it. You got to find the right person and the right fit, of course, and somebody who's been there, done that. But once you do, I think it's worth every penny and then some.
Yeah. And it's interesting because a lot of the coaches who I've worked with, they do not make their living from coaching.
Right.
They have their own very successful enterprises and, entrepreneurial ventures. And it's just like a side thing that they do.
Yep.
And especially when you coach someone and you have a limited amount of bandwidth and you don't really do it for the money, like the money part scratches the itch that, okay, I know that this person's going to pay more attention. They're going to be more likely to execute because now they're paying something. They're showing that it's serious. They're showing that it's valuable. But when they see you not execute on something, like my coach just straight up told me, he's like, look, if at any point I feel like you're not getting value, I'm going to fire you before you quit.
And that's a good coach. Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, dang, and there's been a couple of times where he had like a moment where he's like, are we at this point now where, I feel like I'm getting into babysitting territory where I keep telling you the same thing.
Right.
And I'm not a babysitter. Like if you're not going to do this yourself, and I'm like, dang it, And I've had good coaches on the fitness side that have had very good mental unlocks and things that I just said that I couldn't do. And it's just been that way my whole more adult life, especially in these recent years where I've realized that value. Incredibly important.
Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. So let's get into, again, more of the kind of the business portfolio that you have. So of the 12 companies that you're running right now, which one are you the most bullish on? I'm assuming Higher Bus because that's your main focus. Is
Yeah,
that the case?
100%. Yes, 100%. I mean, Hammer and Forge, I'd say, and well, Wise Coatings. Wise Coatings is definitely, I'm super passionate about that business. Whitney, my partner and CEO over there, is just absolutely crushing it. She's doing an amazing job. But Wise Higher Bus has itched this AI obsession that I have been in deeply entrenched in learning. And it has been some of the most fulfilling type of education work, DIY. I mean, it's one of the times where I feel like DIY is just really, really, really paying off because you're learning to apply this most world changing tool that the likes of which no one has ever seen or used before. And you're in the true bleeding edge side of technology. It feels like the Wild West. It's like the new
Right.
frontier.
It's
And
like the beginning of the internet.
yeah, it's really, really crazy. So it's been very, very fulfilling. The value of a software company has blown my mind on just how software companies are valuated compared to other types of businesses in
Hmm.
multiples of revenue versus multiples of EBITDA or SDE. And so all of those things kind of combined have made it just a really exciting opportunity. And we're building tools that literally are changing people's lives. Like the right person for a company can literally change their life. So that part has been extremely fulfilling for me. And the trades right now is booming because people are recognizing that AI is eliminating a lot of positions. And some of the most safe haven industries right now that exist are in the trades and home
Right.
services. So that's been like perfect storm of just timing and opportunity, I think.
Right. Because until the Tesla robot is jumping up on the roof and hanging shingles, then there's still going to be a lot of
Yeah.
opportunity for service people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so, so kind of run through the Higher Bus business model. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is you guys are essentially using AI to empower home service businesses to I guess, more quickly and more efficiently execute the recruiting process. Is that kind of the gist of it?
Yeah, very much so. It's one of the most hated processes for home service business owners of finding good people
Hmm.
because, you have an hour or two of talking to someone to try to determine whether or not they're going to be a good fit and they're going to work hard and they're going to do this. And you have a variety of data points / gut instincts. And the data points are mostly fabricated because 70% of people lie on their resume and they, admittedly lie on their resume or exaggerate
Hmm.
stuff. And now AI is writing a lot of people's resumes. So the part that we decided to do was just take all of that very, very mundane work and kind of play matchmaker for a person who is behaviorally really well fit for enjoying and succeeding in a specific role inside of a business. And then finding a business owner what really matters to them, their core values, and who they're looking for, and then making sure that that applicant finds that business owner and has a really fantastic fit together. And it's still a human in the loop process because they're the ones that are actually deciding on this, but we just prioritize the top 3% of talent to be stood in front of them on autopilot. So everything from writing the job ads, posting them, split testing them, revising copy, nurturing all candidates, interviewing them, analyzing their resume, calling, following up, texting, giving them a right seat behavioral assessments and scoring them and then teeing them up. Like all of that just kind of happens on autopilot for a business owner.
So you're saying that pretty much every one of those steps that you just mentioned there is being done by AI, even including the calling. Like, because I've heard some of these AI voice agents that are, for example, calling a restaurant and making a reservation, right? That's obviously a very elementary use case.
Yep.
But I think the technology is evolving so rapidly. Are you saying that at this point you've got either an AI agent or some sort of AI enabled tool calling these candidates and maybe screening them over the phone as part of the process? Like, I guess what does it look? I guess where's the human? What is the human doing in this case?
I mean, the human is starting with us to be able to just give a tremendous amount of data points and information on what makes their business unique, what are their core values, what are they looking for, what's the ideal person look like for them. So it starts off with really getting a deep understanding of the client and what they need. Secondly, it starts the next touch points are posting the job ads, writing them, getting those people coming through. But we allow candidates to conduct an instant interview. So normally what happens is a candidate interviews for a position, they maybe get an automation, and then maybe they talk to somebody in 3 days, 7 days, 14 days, however long it takes. Then they have another interview later on. Whereas they have the ability to, the second that they apply, conduct a real interview and learn about the position, be asked questions, identify whether or not they'd be a good enough candidate to push them into the next round. And the next round is led by humans. And we actually benchmarked all of this with real human interviews. And the cool part about it is that there's higher satisfaction rates on both sides when someone can get an instant interview and understand exactly whether or not they're going to enjoy this position, whether they qualify for it actually. And it's not wasting neither the candidate nor the employer's time. So that's kind of that initial benefit that happens. And then, of course, the employers at that point pick up the ball and make the final decision on whether or not they would actually want to work with this person face to face moving forward.
And so am I correct in my understanding that initial instant interview is being done with an AI agent? So the candidate's applying online and it's like, all right, here, you can do a first round interview right now. And maybe they click, interview now, and they're just chatting with an AI agent, right? The AI agent that's trained on the specific company that's doing the recruiting, their core values, what they're looking for, maybe the qualities of some of their best employees, right? Like you said, you're gathering a lot of data up front from the actual recruiting company to then go out and almost like custom train that AI agent to look for a specific type of person.
Exactly. And the AI is not making decisions in the hiring process. It's not saying, well, you're not hired or you are hired.
It's just filtering, it sounds like.
It's prioritizing. Yeah. It's prioritizing who are the people that are most excited, most engaged, have the best, propensity for this type of role, have the experience. Because a business owner, they want to know, okay, what does their experience look like? And we actually coach a lot of people into not having lots of really heavy, hard requirements for experience. Because some of my best employees have been those that have never done garage floor coatings before ever.
Right.
But they just have a beginner's heart. They have the right soft skills. They have the right behaviors. They'll pick up and they'll learn anything. And we have a good training program. So we actually not only help find people, but we spend a lot of time coaching business owners on best practices for onboarding and for setting up their employees for success and training them properly. And we have tons of resources and tools that we give all of our clients, systems, written job descriptions, onboarding checklists, et cetera, so that they are now more empowered to be able to make that a successful role placement too. So it's really just making home service business owners better talent procurement specialists and providing a better home for when the employee comes and lands, instead of this being a rinky-dink little, hole in the wall business. Like,
right.
Let's teach you to be a professional operation that attracts good people, because that's a big part of the problem too for a lot of business owners.
Well, and I think it's such a strong pitch. I mean, again, hearing this coming from you and having a better understanding of what you guys do. If I'm a home service business owner, why would I work with anyone else, or why would I go through the normal recruiting channels, right? Because I mean, going through the normal channels, there's so much human error, there's so much human bias, there's so much ball dropping, right? Like, why would I not want a candidate to be able to do a first round interview immediately, right? Yeah. To me, it's almost like too good to be true. Obviously it's not, but because that's where technology is heading.
It is.
Now, I'm sure you've got, maybe not even in front of you, but I'm sure some data points off the top of your head as far as success rates or retention rates with your model versus traditional recruiting. Do you have any data points that you could kind of spit off the top as far as, when we recruit a candidate, they stay X amount longer, or, anything along those lines?
Yeah, the biggest one that we see is it's a 38% drop in turnover.
Wow.
So
That's significant.
yeah, just that one thing alone is a huge increase, especially when you consider the cost of turning over an employee. On average, for even like a lower level position, is around $5,800, and
Jeez.
it goes up to a full year's salary for some positions like operations managers and directors and higher level positions. But having an understanding, like that's one side of the equation. The other side that we see, the metric that I'm actually most proud of, is the amount of time that a business owner, how much it frees up them and actually helps them with a better work-life balance. And when you have someone like some of these positions, like a production manager, operations manager, office manager, they're life-changing positions because you have a business owner that's working 80 hours, 100 hours a week. And they're like, I started this business to be free. I'm more of a slave than ever. I'm
Right.
making barely anything. And it's very, very hard to be an entrepreneur. Most people have no idea. And to be able to help them find their team member that can drastically transform their life personally and also provide a great deal of fulfillment to that team member who just so happens to love that career and see the impact that they're making. It's one of the most fulfilling things ever. And that's just like, it's one of the coolest applications that I've been able to see of AI, where the end net result is just better human connections and relationships. Like I really, really love it. I'm really happy to be in it.
Well, and I love that you guys are you're using AI to really augment the human experience in a good way. I think that's a
Yeah.
lot of people's issue with AI is they think, "Oh, it's going to take over our jobs or it's going to put some people out of business." And you guys are kind of taking the opposite approach. It's like, "Well, actually, we're using AI to get people jobs, like to do the opposite of what a lot of people are afraid of." So I love that you guys are taking that approach. Now, out of curiosity, and I'm sure it depends on maybe the role that you're hiring for, or I mean, I'm sure how many people you're hiring at a time, but like, what is the general cost to work with you guys or to, let's say, go from uh, hiring to onboarding using HireBus?
The pricing package starts at about $197 a month. And that provides the right seat assessment. It provides the coaching reports, the ability to be able to send links to team members using the API. If you have your own applicant tracking system or something else, you get that extra layer of just analysis and predictive nature, all the way up to, maybe $800 a month, where we do all the hiring, we do all the interviewing. We basically install a full-time fractional AI recruiter in your business that is always interviewing for you for given roles. And it's way cheaper than even hiring a full-time VA to just
Yeah,
do nothing but that. And
right.
it's way better and you get way more insights and more experience. And so that's in essence where a lot of our clients kind of fall, is more in that, upper tier, because they're looking at hiring, 5+ people a year for different types of roles, or they're growing. And that's in essence kind of where we settle at. And it can go up from there, but that's usually where most of our people kind of fall.
Interesting, because I was honestly expecting you to say like, oh, it's 5 grand or it's 10 grand, but I mean, from a software business owner perspective, it makes sense that you want to build MRR. I don't know why I was thinking more of like a flat rate type style, but I guess it's because you're probably targeting, well, obviously home service businesses who naturally because of the industry are going to have turnover or are going to have a constant need for more plumbers or more roofers or more people. So they probably subscribe for what, 5 6, like are you even able to share kind of the average length of time that people stay subscribed? And I guess a follow-up
Yeah.
question would be, do some people say like, well, hey, we need somebody right now, so maybe they subscribe for 2 months, they find that person, 6 months later they need to hire another guy, so they resubscribe? I'm sure you see a lot of that too.
Yes, it's a great question. And honestly, when we were first starting this out, we were like, what is the right model with all of this? Because it was something that was new. what we found is there's a difference between proactive and reactive mode. So like with Wise
Mm-hmm.
Coatings, we have 280 technicians on a waiting list to join our company.
Wow.
And the reason why is because we never turn off our job ads. We never stop interviewing. And everyone that we talk to, we say, hey, we think you'd be a fantastic fit. We are anticipating an opening coming up very soon. Is it all right if we put you on a waiting list? And as soon as that pops up, we'll shoot you a message. And it changes the dynamic. And really, this is best practice for anybody, which is to always be on the lookout for talent, always be on the lookout, because let me tell you, especially in home services, you'll have technicians that, they start slipping up. They're not following things properly. You have salespeople, you're going to be growing. You're going to have a lot of positions that will really need butts and seats. And what happens is if you wait until you desperately need somebody,
It's too late.
you have a couple weeks to try to hire someone, and then you're hiring anyone with a pulse.
Right.
And you perpetuate this terrible culture.
Yep.
Whereas if you're doing performance pay and you have your leaderboard from first place to last place, you now have the ability to fire someone. It's okay to fire low performers.
Right.
A lot of people don't fire low performers because they're like, well, it's just going to take so much work to replace them. I'll just stick with my necessary evil because this is way more evil to go find somebody else.
Right.
That's not what we do. So people, we're literally recruiting 365 days a year for our clients. And then what they do is they just turn on and off whether or not they want calendared interviews for that final selection to happen. But we just let them know, hey, here's some awesome people that we found. Let us know if you're interested. And you'd be amazed at how many times people are like, yeah, I want that interview.
It's so smart, right? And I mean, it makes logical sense. It's like, why would you not be building? It's kind of like I know you've been in the coaching space too, right? It's kind of like the waitlist model of if you've got a coaching program or a community and maybe you only open it up, a couple of times per year. If you've got a wait list of people who have already raised their hand and said they're interested, well, the chances of the people on the wait list actually, becoming paying customers is so much higher. And so it makes complete sense to do that from a HR perspective when you're hiring people, again, especially in these home services industries that do see a lot of turnover. And I feel like Hire Bus goes completely hand in hand with your other business because, I mean, like you said, if you got a low performer, just you can them and you go to the wait list and hire on that next person. And
Right.
to me, it's just it makes perfect sense. And those businesses obviously feed one another very nicely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been amazing. It's been an awesome experience. And, you asked how long people stay for. Well, we started this a little over 2 years ago. And on average, it's about 18 months. That's
Wow.
about what our length of time is, our lifetime value. And it just keeps extending out because, when people have a perpetual pipeline of good, strong talent, like why would you ever want to turn that off? Why would you ever want
Right.
to lose that level of control over the talent that you have on your team? It's literally the most important asset because that is what you sell.
Right.
Are the people that you have that go perform your services.
That
It's your
fulfill the
product.
work. Exactly. No, it's so eye-opening. I could ask you a million more questions, but I know we're already up against an hour
Maybe
here.
another podcast sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brandon, where can people follow you or find out more about you or connect with you?
If you go to hirebuzz.com, if you are a service business, and by the way, we don't just hire for home services, we hire for a lot of industries. Home services is obviously where a niche that we formed because of my background. But if you go there, check that out. Also, if you go to, follow me, Brandon Vaughn or HireBus on Instagram, Facebook. We're working on getting some additional social content out there for just entrepreneurs. But just message me, shoot, let's talk. If you need any kind of talent to come onto your team, happy to have one of our recruiters get on a call with you. And we do also have a guaranteed hire program for just one-offs as well. It doesn't have to just be a recurring. So we've hired CEOs for people and found general managers and account executives and commission-only salespeople for a variety of different types of industries. So never hurts to ask.
Well, I'm so glad that you and I connected a few weeks ago because next time I go to hire somebody, I know exactly who I'm going to, because the hiring
Yeah,
process, it's just intimidating. It's a pain in the ass,
it
as you
is.
know better than anyone. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Brandon, I appreciate the time, man. Guys, again, that's Hirebus. That's HIREBUS.com. We're going to put that in the show notes. If you're listening on podcast platforms, we're going to put that in the description. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll also link to Brandon's socials. And Brandon, thank you for the time, man.
Thanks for having me on, Corey. I enjoyed it. We'll catch you next time.